Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Welcome to the community live stream. My name is Chuck Tomasi, Senior Developer Evangelist for ServiceNow. This is August 13th, 2020, and our topic today is building a basic service portal widget. I want to give you the skills to get started. There's a lot of material, so I won't be able to cover everything there is to know about service portal widgets right today. So we're going to break this out into other episodes. But today is just the basics. So if you've got a question about that, I hope I can help answer it today. Let's continue on. We are doing this live on YouTube every Monday and Thursday at 2 p.m. UTC. I hope you can join me for that. There's a number of people who have. They are signing in fast and furious, and welcome, good morning to many familiar names and many new names. It's great to see you here. As always, I always look forward to Monday and Thursday mornings when I can bring this to you. Go ahead and subscribe and like and share, and you know what to do. Turn on those notifications, and if your device is configured like mine, you will get a notification that says, hey, guess what? It's live. You might want to go over there. In fact, if you turn on the little bell notification, it will tell you 30 minutes ahead of time that it's coming up. So I noticed a number of people, I think we had about 9 people in here an hour and a half ago waiting for this to start. Thank you very much for joining and being so eager and signing up. It's widget time. And I don't claim to be a 100% expert in this. I learned it through bits and pieces along the way. So I'm going to share with you what I know. If there's some other hints that are on the live that you can contribute in the chat, please do so. I look forward to that. This is a learning, sharing thing. It's a live community stream. That's why I call it community live stream. So we are part of the community, and thank you for joining me. As a backup plan, we've always got this recorded on Twitch, and it'll be there for a couple of weeks, but the long-term one will be on YouTube. So you're welcome to watch in either place. I do keep an eye on the YouTube chat. I don't have the bandwidth to watch 2 chats at once. If I had a facilitator, maybe they could help with that. Okay, thank you, Carolyn, for the kind words. I want to remind you, if you've got questions that go beyond what we're covering today, and we are covering basic service portal widget construction. If you've got something about scripted REST APIs, which we'll be covering on Monday, there's a spoiler alert. If you've got questions about GRC or performance analytics and reporting, please go over to the community and post it there. There are hundreds of thousands of people in this community that are active, that are involved, that are eager and willing to help you get your questions and inquiries and exploration done. Community.servicenow.com is where you can find that. The other thing that I invite you to do is go over to developer.servicenow.com. This is a wonderful place to go and experiment, because much of what we do today will be something you may want to experiment with. Try it with your own tables, try it with your own CSS, try it with build your own widget and get that idea of, hey, I always wanted to build one of these, or see how this goes. This is a great place to do it, because if you mess it up, it's not on your organization's instance, it's on your personal developer instance, where you can go and reset that and wipe it and do all that other stuff. There's also all of the APIs over there, and great examples in the share page. If you go up to Connect, there's a share page and lots of code snippets there. So lots and lots of great stuff. I invite you to go sign up for the developer program over at developer.servicenow.com. And on that Connect page is also a bunch of meetups. We've added webinars, we've added podcasts that are coming up. So if you want to know what's coming up in the Breakpoint podcast or this series, you can go to Connect up at the top of the page and click on events. So these are events that we will have. So I gave you a spoiler alert for next Monday. I've got about 4 or 5 of these planned out. Hope to lengthen the pipeline as we go. The other thing that you will find on that page is meetups, which are available over at meetup.com. Actually, you can find the meetups there, but if you want to sign up or see where the chapters are or get involved with some other meetups, meetup.com/pro/ServiceNow dev program. These are meetups for you, for the developers. If you want to know more about service portal widgets, or you want to, a lot of these are being held, in fact, I think all of them are being held virtually right now, so it's very easy to get involved. And I know from attending a number of these in the last couple of months, they say, what else would you like to talk about? this is a great time to bring your questions to other developers and get their opinion. It could be on, how do you like Flow Designer? It could be on, I've got a question about Service Portal widgets, or I'm trying to normalize data. Throw it out there. There's a lot of people. This is a fun way to interact live with people. Yeah, it's live as live as Zoom will get you, but it is live and a little more interactive than the community, because you don't have to wait minutes, hours, days for an answer. Whew. All right, we've got everybody checking in. I think there's more people live right now than watched some of my early first episodes, and thank you very much. Quick reminder, if you've written some applications, we want to know about them, and we will contribute $50 to the UN COVID Response and Recovery Team or Fund for that. Go to the URL, up to 5 applications, and we'll contribute up to $250 per application. Let us know what you've built. We're very excited and eager to hear what you've built on the Now platform. Also want to remind you, whoop, I skipped over a slide. Let's go back one. Go back one. Can't go past the new podcast, Breakpoint. I'm going to stick in a special episode. It is every other Wednesday. We had one on the 5th with Brad Tilton, how to get started being a ServiceNow developer. We will come out with another one on the 19th, where I talk to Dave Slusher about the Paris platform features. This is an audio podcast, so you can subscribe, get your, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, that sort of thing. I have a special one coming out on the 26th, and then again on the 2nd. So we've got 3 consecutive Wednesdays in a row where you'll be receiving a podcast from this feed. If you are subscribed, you get it automatically. That's the beauty of it. So encourage you to go over there. Great conversations with these people. I also had an idea, was it yesterday? Tuesday? I can't remember. The days are just getting a big blur. I had another idea of some content I'd love to throw in there. So if I get my way, we may have more than bi-weekly content, but you can count on it at least every other Wednesday. All right, I snuck it up there if you didn't catch it real quick. Next Tuesday on the 18th, we will be, today is Service Portal widgets. Tuesday is going to be Now Experience Components. Very similar in construct, but one is the next generation of our UI. You could still keep building these Service Portal widgets. I'll get to that in a little bit. But go over there and register. Wolfgang is one of our senior software engineers, and brilliant guy, really smart. And he's got a lot to share with us, and I look forward to learning from him as well. I know less about Now Experience Components than I do about Service Portal, and I'd like to sort of level that out a little bit. Any code that I write, which I will be doing, I've got the orange shirt on. That means we're going to be writing some code today. It's a code decoded day. I'll put that over in the GitHub repo that you see there. There will be a folder with today's date, 2020-08-13. It's the 13th of August, 2020. You'll find that code there. So if you want to take these Service Portal widget components, the client script, the HTML, the server script, the CSS, and twist it around and take it, make it, break it, do it. That's what you can do with that over there. I invite you to take a look at that. If you are not comfortable with JavaScript, hey, why not get started on the free web series that I put out last year called Learn JavaScript on the Now platform. You can find the link down there, SNLearn.js. It goes through step by step from the very basics to some more sophisticated stuff as a preparation to taking the ServiceNow scripting course, for example, that you would want to become a certified application developer. That would be fun. All right, we've got people here saying they are ready to party. Well, in that case, let's get this party started. I'm going to start at my personal developer instance that I got over at developer.servicenow.com for free. Yeah, got to throw in the bell. And I want to make sure I don't forget anything because I jotted down some notes of what I want to do. All right, quick refresher, Service Portal. We're all familiar with that, I hope. If not, I am going to go to my developer instance and put a /sp, which is the default out of the box standard Service Portal that we ship, and you are free to configure it. You've probably all seen this before. I would like to ignore that message for now. You know, we've got different pieces on here. For example, this one that you see here is request something. That's what we call a widget. These are the basic building blocks that we put on a page, and they can be configured. They don't have to be single function. This one says, what would you like to link to? What would you like the icon to look like? And there's another one right next to it, a different instance of that widget. And there's another one right here. So all four of these are the same widget with different configuration parameters to them. If I continue to navigate around and say, let's go to my open incidents, this is a list widget down here. We'll make a simple list widget today. Just want to show you how to build one of these widgets out, and then you can take it with your imagination and go even further. The place to get started is under Service Portal. We have this Service Portal configuration menu option right here. And before I get it, I don't want to miss anything. I was just glancing at my notes. I talked about the Now experience. That's our next generation of user interface. We adopted Service Portal as a next generation about 2016, I think it was. We came out with Service Portal. Up until then, all of our user interface was built on a framework called Jelly. That was part of the Apache project. Worked great for our standard lists and forms that you see today. However, Jelly is a rather interesting skill set, kind of rare, that people can walk into an organization and say, yes, I know Jelly. And it was a combination of Jelly, Jexel, and JavaScript. Say that 3 times real fast. And well, I do have a 3-part series in the Tech Now webinar series to learn Jelly. It was getting a little long in the tooth. Well, Google came out with AngularJS, and we adopted that and said, there, now that's a little more standards-based. We can build our own environment around that. Shortly thereafter, Google abandoned it. So now we're left with a technology that no one's supporting anymore. And we said, well, we can't have that. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We said, we're going to build a web component-based architecture that allows developers to build these components independent of the underlying technology. And we'll have more of this discussion with Wolf on both TechNow and Breakpoint. So if you're not watching for those, please do. We are not getting rid of Jelly. We are not getting rid of Angular. We are not getting rid of Service Portal. They will continue to be there, just like we're not getting rid of the legacy workflow. If you've built content on there, it will still maintain. It would be disastrous for us to say, hey, move all your portals to the Now experience by 2023 or die. It's still there. It will still work, anything you've built today. And I've built a number of things over the last 4 years, and I go, great, they'll still work. I can use them directly or indirectly for that. Okay, so I am showing you something that's been around for a while, and it will continue to be around. If you've got to maintain something, this will help you understand what that is. Okay, this is the Service Portal configuration page. A number of things here you may have seen if you've gone through the Service Portal course. Branding editor, if we want to change the colors. The designer, if we want to change the way that the pages are laid out. The page editor to change the page configuration. I'm going to be focusing on the widget editor. This is, and the neat thing about Service Portal, aside from the logo still being out of date, is it is built on Service Portal. Everything you see here is widgets. It's kind of a, as Fred Letty put it, our founder, self-eating watermelon. I'd never heard that till he started describing Service Portal. So in our example, I've got a number of them that I can take a look at. I want to also make sure that I am in the right scope. I'm in trivia. I don't want to be in trivia, for example. Let's pick, oh, my good old CLS 323, because like many other things in the platform, once I create a widget, it's in that scope. It's stuck with that scope. And I can't edit a widget from somebody else's scope. I can look at it, but I can't edit it if I'm not in the right scope. And unfortunately, there's no scope picker in here. So I've got to make sure that I get the right scope for the right portal, the right pages, the right widgets as I work on that. So pay attention to the scope, very important. Let's go ahead and create a new widget. It says, hey, let's make a new widget. What do you want to call it? I'm going to call this one simple list. I think I've already taken before. Let's call this CLS list. And it gives it a prefix. I would like to create a test page. You don't have to if you plan to put this widget on another page automatically and say, it's going to be part of this page, I will test it. I typically do because as I develop these, I test them both in Service Portal and on their own dedicated page. Sometimes the rendering comes up a little bit different. If you do this, watch out for lots of random single-purpose, single widget pages, because you can get quite a collection of these if you're building lots of widgets and you have dedicated test pages to each of them. Okay, just be careful of that. So the page by default has the same name. When you see the URL and it says /sp?ID equals, that's the page ID. You can't test a widget just on itself. You have to have a widget on a page and the page on a portal. Okay, that's kind of how it goes. I'm not going to go through the whole Service Portal thing, but that's the basic hierarchy and the architecture. I will submit that. Hopefully it will do something for me. And it comes up with the editor. Normally, I believe it looks more like that with 3 panes. I must have been doing some work and turned off HTML. Okay, I've got HTML on the left. I've got client script code in the middle, and I've got server code. Now, if you are familiar with AngularJS, all the better to you. There are some time-saving features in here around creating directives and some stuff that is hidden behind the scenes that makes it actually a little faster for you to develop this. And I kind of like that. Let's start with something very basic. Like most people, I'm going to start with a hello world. So I'm over here in my HTML template, and I will put in hello world. Hooray! We've written our first widget. I didn't do anything with any other code. Save this, and I can test it in a couple of ways. I could test it right here in Service Portal. If I turn on my options and say enable preview right here in the menu. Check that, and a preview window comes up and runs my widget for me. Terrific. Ain't that fancy? I won't get into the other options today, so we'll put that away. And I can turn the preview window on and off here. Ta-da! All right, so there's my hello world. And every time I save, it will run that. If I save it, it will refresh. Watch the little dancing dots up here. It saves, it refreshes, it's good. So I've made a widget. Not terribly functional, but maybe you just want a welcome message. Let's do something a little more interactive with the system. For example, over here in my server script, I know that I have a method from the glide system. If you don't remember, you can always, let's get it from developer. Developer.servicenow.com has all of our wonderful scripting APIs. We can do glide system. I would like to get the username. Let's say hello, Chuck Tomasi. Under reference, I've got glide system, and I believe there's one called get username. But just because I'm getting old and forgetful, I'll look it up. And glide system has lots of stuff in here. Under the gets, get user display name and get username. I suspect one is going to say Chuck.Tomasi and one is going to say username. Which brings up an interesting thing. Let's start talking about debugging, how we can start seeing what is going to happen. Well, in this case, let's do a gs.get user display name. Where do we want to save that? That's going to return a value, but I need to save it somewhere. If I put simply var uname, it's going to be in a variable that's only known to the server script. Not terribly useful. I would love to have it used over here. I'm going to blow that up just a little bit more. Makes the formatting a little weird, but hopefully you can see that a little bit better. We'll put client away for now. We're not using that. Instead, look here in the comments. It says populate the data object. For example, data.table. Put something in there. This is a wonderful mechanism, and it is the mechanism for making widget public variables. That's as good as I can say it. And I'm going to say data.username. I'll do camel case in this case. No pun intended. Put that into data.username. And now, when I want to reference that, I do this double curly brace thing. Get rid of the exclamation point. That is, well, no, we'll leave it there. And in there, I can reference it in a number of ways. You may have seen a colon thing. There's different ways that have different meanings. I am going to stick with the simplest. It is c.data.username. Okay, put the C in front of it, and what you get is, let's save it. The server script runs when the widget loads. Okay. So it picks this up and saves it in data username. Then the client script starts. Well, there's nothing really in our client script. We can see that. It just goes, yeah, okay, I have a variable called C array, and then the template renders it. So I've got the advantage of referencing that same data through all of these objects, through server script, through client script, and through HTML. Aha! That leads me to wonder, we get a question. Can we change the default approval state options for an ask for approval? Sounds like a great Flow Designer question. We're not talking Flow Designer today. If you've got that, do as I recommended earlier in the video. Go over to community.servicenow.com, put that in there, and I'm sure somebody will be happy to answer that for you. So remember, questions about Service Portal today. Thanks. Let's take a little bit of example. I was going to say we're going to build, at the beginning I said we're going to build a simple list widget. So I can still leave my hello in there. It's always nice to have a greeting, right? Let's go get some other data. So for example, in this application, I have, what was it, courses? Sure, we'll list out our courses. We have 9 of them. In fact, let's get just the active courses. I'll do a standard server-side script query. So var course gr equals new glide record. And I wonder, I've got a constants in here. It's in this, let's find out if this works. Normally I'd put in the full table name, but I've got a script include that defines that for me. Course gr.add query, active true. Shouldn't be any surprise here. Basic glide record scripting. Maybe I should do a quick video on basic glide record query. I did some of that in the JavaScript video series, so if you watched that. Course gr dot, let's order by name. Right? Let's get these by ascending name, so it would look more like this. Ta-da. That way we'll know it's working like I designed it. And course gr.query. That doesn't belong there. Let's get rid of that. Finally, well, course gr.next. For each record that we find, we want to put this into the data object. Now, I like to define that object. I have a standard that I do when I'm creating tables, that the table has a subproperty of list that has the array of objects. That way, table could have another attribute called length. I could have data.table. In fact, we'll define that up here and say data.table is an object. I don't like to put the entire list of things in my data.table. So data.table is not an array. Data.table is an object. Because I often have tables that have multiple things, a start, an end, a page number. You make up your own mind. So I abstract the list part of the table down a level. And that would look something more like this. List, let's put that in here, is an empty array that I could have other things if I want. Learned that by doing a lot of tables in Service Portal widgets. I said, boy, I don't want to say table underscore length, table underscore list, table. So it's all part of the table, right? And if I don't have a table, I don't have a table. We need access to the scope, which is C, and there is an object there called data, and in there is the username property. Oh, what if we only use username in the double curly braces instead of c.data.username? You want to find out? Like that? Make sure we don't have any syntax errors in here that it's going to blow up on. We just get hello. It says, the Angular doesn't know. As we do this, let's get the name. So I like to declare a local object and say obj.name equals course gr.getValueName. Get value, people. This is very important. Listen closely. Use get value and get display value very liberally. Use it all over the place in your Service Portal widgets. Avoid the dotted notation at all costs with Service Portal. It will take you literally. This may work fine in a GS info, or if you're setting another field on a value, this will screw up your widget. In fact, I should probably do this to show you what happens. Name is an object. It's a glide element object. It's the properties, it's the methods, all of that information about a field called name. This will not work because it's going to store all the stuff it can out of this name into all the stuff it can out of this name. All we want is the name value. So get value name. If you want to have fun with that, go try it the other way. It's a bad time. obj.order equals same thing, course gr.getValueOrder. You may have to do a toString if you're dot walking down something. That's fine too. Some way to get just the value or display value of the variable you're looking for. Now, once we've got those in my little temporary object inside the loop, can I boost that up so you can see a little bit better? I'll try. Maybe I can blow it out. There. Zoom in, zoom in. I could say data.table.list.push, which is an array function. I'm going to push that onto the array. All right, before I go any further, I always like to do a quick sanity check to make sure I've got the data that I expect. So before I render it on the screen, because inevitably you think you have all the data you want and it doesn't work, let's do a little bit of debugging just to throw a gs.info into the log file. And I will put data.table.list. Let's just see what data.table.list consists of. Save that. When I save it, it runs. When I run, I get a log entry, and in my system logs, I can see object, which is fine. Table is an object, and it has lots of little objects inside it. The way that I introspect what's in there is with json.stringify. Put that away for just a second. Nah, let's not put it away. Match up my curly braces so that everybody's happy. And in fact, I'm going to format it a little nicer with this null 4. That just says I'm going to put some spacing in there to make it look pretty. I saved it, it ran again, I refresh, and I get, look, it's an array, here's an object, lorc order 200, object. Excellent. I have data that the widget can now consume. Great. Put that away. It's a good thing. Let's go through and render this. Woohoo! This will be fun. In order to render it, I want to make some place to display it. So let's get my hands on the right home keys. We'll make a table, which automatically matches that. We'll do a tr. And for each row, I iterate over that object and say ng repeat equals, I can call it row, I can call it item. This is up to you. Row in c.data.table.list. It's going to take one of those row objects out and pull it and use it for me. Somebody said you can use console.log. You can use console.log, except when I turn on my console here, which I believe is that key, it makes Service Portal a bit of a mess. Okay, it gets really squishy. I know I'm zoomed in pretty high here. Works better when you have that dedicated page, which may be a good transition for us right now to go over to that page. Let's turn that off. Remember I said I had a test page for this? Well, I can get to it by going to my instance /sp or whatever your favorite portal is. We call it CLS list. ID equals CLS list. And there's my hello world. Now, a console would be a little bit better. Okay. Makes a little more sense here. And I can also test with a mobile view. Service Portal is responsive. I can say which mobile I want. Okay, that gets a little small for you to see on the web screen at home. So let's continue on. I don't need the system log. I want to go back to my widget editor. And since we're using a preview page, we don't need the preview pane anymore. Hooray. I've got my data. We're going to iterate over it with ng repeat. And for every row that it finds, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put in a couple of cells in my table. And in cell 1, I'm going to put row.name. And in cell 2, I'm going to put row.order, because those are the properties that I put into each object. Save that. Now, this time it won't reload for me automatically. Where'd my page go? There it is. Let's put the page next to the editor. I find that a lot easier. Refresh this. You do a lot more refreshing this way. And looky here. I've got a nice table with my data. I've extracted it in the server script and passed it to the HTML. Very easy to do. Steve says, if you need to dot walk in your GR, then you have to do toString. Yes, yes you do. Or if your field on the other end has a get display value, you could do that too. Depends whether you want the value or the display value. But definitely, you've got to have some string. If you start seeing weird things like object, in fact, let's do that just for fun. Let's say I was a naive programmer. Okay. In fact, I'm going to not bother typing that again. I will copy, paste, and comment one of them out. There. And I'm a naive programmer. I forgot what Chuck said. And I put object.name equals course gr.name, because I've done this when setting field values in a UI action or something else. What happens? Well, you get crazy things like this. See the curly braces up here? That means you goofed. Okay. Not so happy. And you go, well, what happened? Let's do this. Console.log obj.name. What's wrong with my name variable? And when I do that, it spits out, well, here's some stuff, but oh, it's an object. It's not, if I can expand and collapse it, it means it's got something else going on in here. So that's a bad day. If I change that back to the way it was, and comment that one, I'm not in the way there too much, am I? Nope. Save that. Run it again. Good idea. We're doing some debugging. Oh, still expands and collapse. Interesting. Okay. But I get this working. So console.log, here's something important when you're debugging. Console.log in a server script is only valid in a Service Portal widget. You can't put a console.log in a business rule, a UI action, or something else. Okay, so this is only valid for widget server code. That's why I often use gsinfo. It's just something I do. The other way that I often debug is very handy. If I didn't quite get what was in my object, maybe my table's not displaying properly, I can do something like c.data.table and pipe it through, make that bigger for you, JSON. This is pretty cool. It takes this, it stringifies it, it displays it, and even better, I like to put mine inside of a pre-tag. Wow, I totally messed that up. Let's put this all inside my pre-tag, And if you watch closely, the alignment is a little off here. Select all, Shift Tab. So Control A, Command A, whatever it is, and it will realign things for you. This one doesn't because it's inside a pre and it goes, I don't care. So if your alignment starts getting a little bit off and you're one of these people who loves to have their indentation just right, select all, Shift Tab. Okay? This will print out my table object at the bottom of the page. Save, refresh, and hooray! I now have sort of a visual log. Obviously, you don't want to leave that on your widget all the time. So I'll show you in a future episode how you could put in a little flag to say, turn my debugging on. I want to debug this widget right now. And have visual cues on the screen only when you say so. Kind of handy. All right, let's comment that out for now. I'll leave that in because it was very handy. Commenting in HTML is like that and ends with that. They got to be different, right? Can you provide an example of how you might bind a TD attribute to a property in your row object that contains HTML? Would it look like this using inner HTML? Going a little bit beyond what our simple widget is here, Mike. I'll leave that for the community or a future episode. But I will keep that in mind as I go forward for potential content. Okay. I forget you use something on HTML JSON. This is pretty fun stuff. Okay, we've got our basic row. I'm just going to check and make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, we want to get the client involved. We've got our server script, got our client involved. Or excuse me, we got our HTML rendering it, but what if we want to click one of these rows and possibly pass a value through? Let's just have some fun and do another cell that says, we'll put a button out there. Button, name equals, because it's always nice to have a name, is, I don't know, order button. The important part here is ng click. Anytime you see ng, it means next generation. This is where you're starting to get the Angular directives involved. So ng click says when I click this. Very similar to a standard HTML on submit or on click or something like that. Only takes care of a few more advanced things for us. I'm going to call a function. Call show order. It's not going to do anything special. But I do want to interact with the client script. I give it a function name and say order. Let's see what it looks like. It's not going to do anything yet. It might even bark at me that it doesn't have something interesting going on. I have a whole bunch of these buttons over here. And if you are doing ATF, you may want to put an ID on there at some point too. There are some other attributes you can get out of ng repeat, like what row am I on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is a built-in iterator, a counter. You can determine if you're on the last row, the first row. Kind of neat. So I'm not going to get into all of that today. I can also class this up a bit. Class equals button success. You can use some bootstrap parameters on here. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself on the CSS. But let's make that a little prettier. I didn't put any other CSS. You can see the spacing is kind of weird. And if I click that, nothing happens. Okay, nothing happens. I thought I commented out my console.log. I did not comment out the console.log. I don't like extra log messages once things are working nicely. So next step is, let's put the server script away and bring out the client script. We need to create a function called show order in here. And this is done, don't forget this part. I always do. You have to go up to the top of your client script and see these parentheses whenever you use something new. And we are going to use something new called $scope dot order button. I think that's what I called it. I can't remember things for very long. I'm getting old. Let's see. What did I call it? I called it show order. Very good. So let's get this from behind my head. Show order. Not odor. Order. equals function and any parameters that I pass. Now I could pass it the order. Row.order. It will know what row.order is. And for this, I'm just going to call it num. Like, let's pass a parameter to this. I may be telling it what object I want. I might be telling it a sysid of a record to go do something on the server. Lots of different ways you could slice and dice this. But I'm passing information from a live form to the client script without hitting a submit button. And in here, console.log, I like to add show order num equals pretty much standard JavaScript stuff there. Now, the part that I said, don't forget, it's going to yell at me and go, what is scope? You have to put that up there. There's lots of different services and dependencies and things that you can use. Timeout, location, window. If you're doing a REST request, $HTTP, you need these things defined so that the client script goes, I need all these parts before I load up the client. I'll go get them for you. Now it knows what scope is. Always forget that one. And if I want to reference any of the data object, I can do that here as well. So I can reference it as c.data.table.list. Some sub element. Let's save that. You just forgot to pass in scope again. Yep, I got it. Might be a little bit of latency on there. That's the Angular part. I saved it, I run it, and click that, and it says, yay, there's my first console message. Show order num 300. I don't think I can zoom in on that part, can I? Nope, I can zoom in on anything over here, but I can't zoom in on, interesting. Okay, anyway, clear this out. 100, that corresponds to this number next to the order button that I had. Let's do a 600, great. I can now pass information from the widget to the client. What if I want to, say, update a record on the server? Aha, well, that gets a little more interesting. I'm not going to actually do the updating part because I can't think of anything at the moment to update, but if I want my button function to interact with the server, I do a c.server.update. That effectively reruns the server script. Remember I said it ran once at load? Well, it's going to run again. And I may, in fact, want to or not want to rerun this whole glide record query. For now, let's leave it as is. What I get when I submit this c.server.update is an input object. It's a copy of data, but it's modified. In fact, let's do something different here. Let's say c.answer. c.data.answer, excuse me. I'm going to start out, I always like to initialize these things, data.answer equals nothing. Okay? And c.data.answer equals the number. So now data has been updated by the client script. That answer attribute has been updated. So let's say we're asking, what course would you like to sign up for? And they click one of these buttons, and I give them some identification back to the client script. The client script is going to tell the server, here's what's happening. And it passes that information through an input object. Now, how do you know if the server script is running first time or on one of these updates? Well, if there's no input object, then you won't be able to, then it's running the first time. So I can say, look, if there's an input object, this has come from a form submission or button submission. Okay, running from a c.server.update. It's going to run this code. It's up to you whether or not you want to put in the else to say run this, or run this and this. I'm going to leave it as an and. So in here, let's put another console.log and say server script answer equals, and this is going to respond with input dot answer. So input is a copy of data with its modified values. I still have the original data.answer, which is nothing. Maybe I could even put 0. I'll leave it as a string, because I think it's a string all throughout. I would convert it anything to a number. This allows me to tell the server, hey, you've got something. Now watch. The first time it's run, let's refresh this. The first time it's run, I don't have that server message because there's no input object. If I click one of these, it now knows, oh, there it is, server answer equals 600. It's coming from the server's console.log, which is why it's yellow. This one came from the client script. I've now got a way to move information from the server script to the client to the HTML and have the client react to the HTML and tell the server about it. That's a pretty full cycle. And there is one thing that I just thought of. This part, obviously this scope.show order is triggered by the click action on one of those buttons. Think of this part up above it as your onload function whenever it's loaded. So I could say console.log client started. There are things that I do in here to initialize variables. Say, client script's running, you got to go do what you got to go do. Run it once when the widget's loaded and everybody's happy. So let's run that again. I see there's my client started. If I click something, it doesn't say client started any more times. So I've got the ability to run something once. I've got the ability to run something on an event, like a button click. Quick checking, is it best practice to always start a table when doing iterations of items in a portal? You've got to have the ng repeat in some kind of tag. It's often in like a table row or a div tag. Those are the most common ones. So it's got to be in a tag. I wouldn't put it in a row. I put mine in a row because I wanted the row to repeat. If you put it in a table, it's going to repeat and create a new table for each element in that array. So I hope that makes sense. All right, a little bit of CSS just to show we aren't savages. We'll clean this up. I'm going to put in here class equals, I think it's table stripe, striped. And that is another bootstrap directive, so I don't have to go crazy with that. Makes my table a little prettier. I don't have any headings on this thing, but you could see very lightly there's a light gray, there's a white, it stripes it for me. Around all of that, I could put my CSS over here to say anything that is a table. I believe it's just table. My CSS is really rusty, and that's why I always save it for the last part, because 80% of my Service Portal widget work is CSS. Padding 10 px. Padding or cell padding? That's when I have to go look. Let's see what happens here. Does it get any prettier? No. I think it's cell padding. Someone on the chat could probably contribute here who's better at CSS than I am. And no, still not working. It might be the TDs that I need. I thought it was just padding, because you could do left padding, right padding. It is. This thing's smart enough to go, you know, if it's black, then it's, there we go. Okay, thank you. We have a little bit of niceness to this table. Again, I still don't have a header on there, but you could easily put that on by putting something out here, right outside this table directive. Say th name and th order. Woo! Getting exciting now. Oh, I missed. Oh, no, I didn't. And then I could have a button. I thought this column was in the wrong place. So I have 3 columns, but only 2 headers. That looks a little goofy. So, thank you, everybody. This has been an introduction to building a Service Portal widget and how to communicate between the server code and the client and the HTML and back again. Let me just check real quickly. I didn't miss anything that I wanted to cover. You could build very powerful ways to visualize your data. If all you wanted was a number, great. Go count the records, pass that in your data object, and everybody's got access to that. In future episodes, I will be covering things like how to interact with the server data, submit a form, do an entire form at once. We did a little bit of that with c.server.update. I'll be getting into another way with maybe a scripted REST API. There's advantages both ways that I want to cover with you. Live data changes. So if something on the server changes, maybe we get this table updated automatically for us. Boom. So you could have, say, a status console that's displaying this stuff. How to interact with the URL parameters. When I showed you that debug, I would like to turn that on and off with the URL, saying debug equals true. And then in my server code it says, well, if debug is true, then I better set this flag so the HTML knows to display that block of stuff. And even communicating between widgets. You could have one widget trigger a signal that another widget behaves to. When you're updating something, and it may take a second or two, how about putting some sort of spinner widget on there that goes, hey, I'm busy right now, rather than the user going, is it working? I hit the submit button. Maybe I better hit it again and again and again. No, you don't want them doing that. And I'll even get into some localization. Right now, when you saw me put these things in the widget, I was hard coding name and order and hello. Boy, if I've got a multilingual organization, I probably better have a widget that responds better to whatever the language is that the people are talking. So look for those in upcoming episodes. Speaking of upcoming episodes, I mentioned that you can find those on the developer portal underneath share events. But I'll tell you right now, next Monday I will be getting into scripted REST APIs, one of my favorite, I don't know why, one of my favorite features of the entire platform, because it gives me full control over what's passed in, what's passed out, how it's processed, and I look forward to sharing that with you on Monday, the 17th of August. If everything goes right technically, and health and family and vacation, I hope things are well with you wherever you are. Please stay safe, be kind, and I look forward to talking to you again on Monday. Until then, hey, why not participate in the community? Again, community.servicenow.com. That's why we're here, to build that developer community, right? If you aren't already. For now, I'm Chuck Tomasi, Senior Developer Evangelist at ServiceNow, wishing you to have a wonderful day. Thanks again. Share something, be helpful, and take care.